welcome to this weekend of subscription concerts, a perfect antidote to the midwinter blues, as we welcome my great friend and one of the preeminent violinists in the world, Gil Shaham. There's always a treat. And he's playing not one, but two concerti. The great Barber Violin Concerto, because it is a Barber anniversary year and we are celebrating the kickoff of that year in suitable fashion. But also the Prokofiev Second Violin Concerto in G minor, one of the great masterpieces of the violin repertoire from the 20th century. And in fact, one of the things I like most about this program is that it highlights four masterpieces from the 20th century, and it calls into high relief this notion that we have a divide between old music and new music. We really should remember that a huge majority of what we consider now basic repertoire was written after 1900. And for a lot of people, certainly people who still remember music that was written up until 1945 or even beyond, when they were alive to know that that music was contemporary, that music has now entered the canon, so to speak, the basic repertoire that orchestras play. In this case, we're looking at four very, very different works, all from masters of their craft, writing in very different styles, and it shows also the incredible variety and the enormous diversity of musical expression that existed around the world in the 20th century, especially the first half of the 20th century. Gil is going to play these two concerti that I mentioned, the Barber Concerto, which is arguably a throwback to a more romantic time. And in fact, Barber was criticized for not writing in a more avant-garde style. But this concerto on its own stands up admirably to any critic. It is extraordinarily tuneful. It is lyrical to an extreme, and it exploits the possibilities of the violin beautifully. It is, in every sense of the word, one of the great classic concerti. And in its American romanticism, really a benchmark for a lot of other composers who are writing concerti for the violin. The Prokofiev Second Violin Concerto is a very dear thing for me. The first concerto in D major may be arguably a little bit more original in a certain way. The second concerto, paired with the Barber, really highlights these two different strains of arch romanticism. This is Prokofiev at his most lyrical, at his most romantic, and a real departure for him from the first violin concerto. But also, like the Barber, extraordinarily well written for the violin and extremely exciting with its off-metered last movement, which has this sort of driving percussion with the violin that sort of storms ahead to this marvelous ending. It's a real treat to be able to play any of this repertoire with Gil, and to have him on stage with us for two pieces is something very, very special. And bookending the program are two other works by Russian composers. Stravinsky, of course, made a name for himself later on in his career in the West. In fact, we can claim him a little bit as an American composer because of all the time that he spent in LA and New York. But in fact, he is extremely Russian. His roots, his DNA is all Russian. And in this wonderfully colorful and evocative Pulcinella suite, we see him at the height of his powers. He is, of course, taking all of these old melodies of Pergolesi and turning them on their head with this absolutely singular accent. You know instantly that it's Stravinsky in his neoclassic mode. A tour de force of orchestration and a really inventive romp for the orchestra, including a lot of great solo turns. So it's really a wonderful way to kick off this program of great 20th century works. And we close with the first symphony of Dmitri Shostakovich. Shostakovich is known for these perhaps even bombastic, it's certainly large-scale works, huge orchestras, really the big statement, the big canvas. In this first symphony, a symphony of youth, obviously, he's in a much purer state. And this symphony is full of wit, it is full of charm, and it's full of beauty, actually. The slow movement is really haunting. And again, a great virtuoso workout for the orchestra. So it's a wonderful way to kick off 2010 and a marvelous concert to hear by the Kansas City Symphony.